You might be wondering what eternity and infinity have to do with a fixed point, and especially an absolute fixed point. Today's video is about what Martinus calls an absolute fixed point. An absolute fixed point is a key to understand the explanation that Martinus provides to the solution to the mystery of life. It's a solution you can read about in Martinus' work, and that I'll go much more into in future videos. It is the first step to understand Martinus' explanations, so consider subscribing to the channel if you want to join the journey towards understanding the mystery of life. You might be skeptical about the claim that Martinus has the solution to the mystery of life, because it's something that we normally consider impossible. The good news is that Martinus provides explanations that we can examine and check for validity. That is the whole idea with Martinus spiritual science, that we can check it ourselves with our intelligence and our own experiences. Moreover, no one is forcing anything on us. Martinus has a saying that we can take what we want and leave the rest. There is no obligations, there's no memberships, there's no ceremonies, there's no requirements that bound us to a specific way of thinking or behavior. You are free, and you're even encouraged by Martinus to do your own thinking and don't believe in things just because he said it. With that disclaimer out of the way, let's get started with the significance of infinity and the absolute fixed point. Martinus comes to the conclusion that infinity should be described as something there is. I'll link a video in the description, you should see it up here as well, so you can see the explanation for that. But briefly, infinity is something that has no start and no end. It has no details, both in time and space. If it had details, it would be finite, because every detail has a start and an end. So it takes up space and it takes up time. Something above time and space is eternal and infinite because it has no boundaries. Thus, something there is, eternity and infinity, are the same. This something there is an absolute fixed point. So let me explain what that means. Something there is above details, then it doesn't change, because only actual details in time and space can change. Change is movement, and movement can only change in time and space. Infinity and eternity, that is the fixed point. It's not relative to time and space. It is not dependent on something specific in time or space. It is not dependent on the eye of the beholder or a specific view in time or space. It is not big or small, young or old. It is just there. It is just something there is. Because the absolute fixed point is just something there is and doesn't change, it allows us to have some unchanging to base our thinking and analysis upon. That is why it is so significant and not just a theoretical exercise. We have found something that is actually absolute true, because it doesn't change. This fixed point might not be what we expected towards the solution of the mystery of life. We have been looking for something absolute or the absolute truth in religion and searched for it in materialistic science. It turns out that it is as simple as it pretty much can be. It is just something there is without form or analysis. This might actually make it hard to grasp, because we are not used to think in terms of eternity and infinity. We are not used to think about something without a form, but that doesn't make it wrong just because we are not used to think about it. An analysis based on an absolute fixed point is eternal and an unchanging analysis. Hence, the result of the analysis become unchanging and thereby eternal. The analysis and its result has always and will always exist and be the same. It does not have a start and an end, as the relative analysis have. Martinus' work is based on such analysis, and that is why he can claim that it's the eternal world picture that he describes. This world picture has and will always exist, so it's not something Martinus has invented or came up with. His descriptions are his own, but the world picture that he's describing has and will always be. So where do we find signs of this absolute something in our lives? The answer is everywhere, because the absolute fixed point expresses itself everywhere. This becomes more clear when I tell you that we also know the absolute fixed point as the I. Not an I, but the I in I'm doing something. The I is the absolute cause behind the change that we experience. It's the initiator or the creator behind the movement. It is what creates what we call life. It is both before and after the creations that we experience, because it is eternal and infinite. The I is what is steering our lives and makes us who we are. However, we have never seen this I. It is a blind spot that we have. It is a blind spot because it exists, but does not have a form in time and space. Something that has no form cannot be experienced directly. We can only experience something directly that has a form. But we can experience the I indirectly because we can see its consequences. The consequences are all the areas where we find willingness and a purpose to do something. It is the I, or this absolute fixed point, who wants something. It wants to experience life, so we can experience the effect of the I, but not the I itself. So the claim here is that in order to change anything, we need something fixed or absolute. Things don't change themselves. Life is changing, and something has to create or initiate this change. And Martinus claims that the movement or the creation of what we experience cannot create itself. It needs a creator behind the creation. And this is where this I, or something there is, comes in behind. So why is all this important? So the most significant aspect of this something there is, at least to me, that it brings us into the territory of an absolute truth. We have something absolute to base our analysis and ultimately our lives on. It doesn't make it any kind of totalitarian or something you have to follow, but it gives you something that is true and not something made up or something that could change tomorrow. The fixed point is also part of the solution to the mystery of life as it is described by Martinus. I plan to come back to this in future videos, but you can find it in his books if you cannot wait for that answer. I have a link to Martinus' work in the descriptions. Most of it is translated to English, so you can find it there. Anyway, having an absolute truth is obviously something significant. It is an alternative to some of the science that we find at the universities today. If we take the materialistic science, it uses relative things. I have a video about that. The claim here is that materialistic science is based on a relative point and not a fixed point. So the results become relative because the measurement or the eye of the beholder is changing all the time. So the results you get will also be in the eye of the beholder. It doesn't take anything away from the value of the science, but it's just not eternal or something that is forever. The results are dependent on what they are measured by, the eye of the beholder. They are not absolute, but relative. The absolute fixed point is a step towards absolute or eternal insight. I'll also give a few points on social constructivism, or just that kind of science, where you're basically leaning towards that everything is subjective and colored by the eye of the beholder. The issue here with those who sees that everything becomes relative or subjective, it is that the claim itself that everything is subjective is in fact an absolute truth. The statement that everything is relative is actually an absolute statement, but that is often ignored in the context of such statement. There is actually a truth in the view that our experiences are subjective. But you cannot conclude based on that everything is subjective. Just because our experiences are subjective doesn't mean that everything is subjective. If you say that everything is subjective, that is, and I'll just repeat myself here, actually means that you're stating that every time you experience something, that is subjective. That's an absolute statement. The whole point with the absolute fixed point is that it is not subjective. It is above everything that is subjective. But to conclude with our starting point with the absolute fixed point, we have something that is not relative. I think it's a game changer. I do realize that I haven't come out with the full argument here, but I hope it has sparked an interest and curiosity that there could be a way towards understanding the mystery of life. Just having the idea that there could be a solution that we are capable of understanding with our intelligence could motivate us to look further for the solution. Martinus provides an explanation for the mystery of life. It is something that we can check against our own daily experiences, so it's not even something we have to believe in. We can get it as actual knowledge. It might be theoretical at first in the sense that we don't have a first-hand experience with the solution, but that goes with many things. If you enjoyed this exploration and found the video enlightening, please consider showing your support by giving it a like. And if you're passionate about finding the mysteries of our universe and life, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription not only supports the channel, but also ensures you won't miss out on future videos where I'll continue to explore these fascinating topics. Thank you again for watching. It's very much appreciated. Until next time. Thank you.